So there I am in this little French restaurant. And don't tell me you haven't done this. You know, you start looking around and you say, God, him over there looks like Brad Pitt. Oh, look, that one over there, don't he look like Joe Biden? Right, okay. I was suddenly very well aware that halfway down the room was someone who looked an absolute spit of Mason Francis Kirkaghan. And I'm like, nah, it can't be. Then I suddenly thought, I'm in French. He's France. It could be him. And I'm like, man, if it is, I want to go and have a quick chat. At least shake his hand. And you know, you sit there and you think, God, you keep trying to still look. And then when he looks, you sort of, I wasn't looking sort of thing. All right. I became absolutely convinced that this was Mason Francis Kirkaghan, just down there, a few tables down, halfway down the room. And I thought, Leggy, right, okay, you've got to do this. You've got to go and just shake his hand, just have a quick chat with him, just introduce yourself at least. So I stood up and I was like, oh, you've got to do this, Leggy. All right, I had come up with a backup plan. I thought, you know, if it isn't, I'm going to pretend to be a really weird English bloke who only knows about 2 words of French. To be honest, I wouldn't have had to practice on that one or even pretend, because that is pretty much me. Okay, so I'm walking down the restaurant thinking, as I got closer, I'm thinking, oh, it's got to be him, man. That's his kind of smell. I got to his table and I said, excuse me. And he said, Leggy, take a seat. I said, seriously? Yeah. He says, please, Leggy, sit down, sit down. I sat down. I said, wait a minute. You just called me Leggy. And he went, I know you, Leggy. I have watched your review. I said, seriously, you have watched my review? He says, yes, Leggy. You talk a lot of, how you say? I said, rubbish? He said, yes, that's it, Leggy. A lot of rubbish. But I like it. I said, seriously, Mr. Mason Francis Kirkton. He said, Leggy, he said, just Messon will do. I said, I've got to be honest, mate, I'm really glad of that. I says, because your surname really gets me tongue sort of thing. He says, Leggy, he says, call me Messon. How are you, Leggy? I said, what? You know when you start doing that thing where you start gibbering a bit and you go, I'm all right. I said, what brings you here? He says, Leggy, he says, I am looking for inspiration in this and inspiration in that. I said, seriously, just here in this restaurant. He said, Leggy, he says, I go out of my front door, I get inspiration. I see the buildings, I get inspiration. I see the tarmac, I get inspiration. I see the buildings, I get inspiration. I see the roadworks, I get inspiration. Inspiration in everything. He says, Leggy, he says, Leggy, he says, I get inspiration and I translate that into a fragrance, put it in a bottle, and you spray it. I says, mate, I can't believe this conversation. This is absolutely crazy. I said, and I am a massive fan of your work. Baccarat Rouge. He says, Leggy, he says, thank you. I am so grateful for your kind words. I said, Baccarat Rouge. I says, that changed the whole fragrance game. I says, it changed my world. I says, the moment I smelt Baccarat Rouge 540, it blew me away. He said, Leggy, he says, that was my life work. I spent so much time getting inspiration. And he went on to explain the inspiration for Baccarat Rouge 540. And I'm thinking, man, I said, mate, I'm just so blown away with this conversation. He says, what did he say then? He said something about me and my reviews. I said, no. I said, I don't want to talk about my reviews. I want to ask you about your fragrances. I says, and the other one, I says, the other one I'm a humongous fan of is Satin Oud Mood. He said, Leggy, he said, that, he says, is the work of an art in a bottle. The inspiration for that was sucked in and put in a bottle. I says, mate, Satin Oud Mood can take you to naughty, naughty places. He says, Leggy, Satin Oud Mood has taken me to some very, very naughty places. And we had a right laugh. I tell you what a guy. You know, he's quite down to earth, Mason, as I could call him, not the old Kirkenden thing, Mason. And we chatted for ages. And after a while, he says, Leggy, he says, would you like a drink? I said, what? You're going to buy me a drink? He says, Leggy, he says, it is my round. I says, oh, I would love a drink, mate. Yeah. And I was thinking, you know, what's he going to do? What's he going to order? We're going to have the full French experience. We're going to have frog's legs. We're going to have some baguettes, some sausage, some fromage, and the finest wine. Anyway, he did the proper French thing. He went, garçon, garçon. And I thought, actually, I know what he means. He's on about, oi, waiter, get over here and take me order. So the waiter comes across with his little pad. He turns the page over and says, oui, monsieur, may I take your order? And Mason says, and this is where it went completely weird and like pear-shaped. Mason said, 2 pints of lager and a packet of crisps. I was like, what the? And at that point, I dropped out the dream. I could not believe it. That point, I woke up, and try as hard as I will to get back to sleep, to get back in the dream, there was no going back to that dream. You know, there was so many things I wanted to ask him about, and it was, oh, man, I can't believe it. But, you know, I actually wanted to ask him about this one. Well, not about this one, because this one's a copy. I couldn't have told old Mason about this one. This is made by Fragrance World, and it's called Amber Eve. I also want to talk to you about this one by Pendora Scents, which is Amber Grand. These are both based on Grand Sieur by Mason Francis Kirkenden, the legend perfumer. All right, let's be perfectly honest. Let's try and tell you what Grand Sieur is all about. It is an incredibly rich vanilla amber, sort of slightly powdery lavender scent. You know, there's not a massive amount of fragrance notes in it. For me, it's kind of like an old school sort of fragrance made contemporary by Mr. Kirkenden, or Mason, as he said I could call him. All right, let me put Grand Sieur in real layman's terms. Here in the UK, we have something called custard. Now, I've no idea whether it's a worldwide thing. So we have this thing called custard. Ignore the fact it's Devon custard. Right, this is a sauce which is very, very vanilla-y, very, very sugary, very, very creamy, almost buttery, and you can have it hot or cold, and you would pour it on your pudding. It's like a topping for a pudding, all right? Now that is what Grand Sieur smells like. In layman's terms, it's a very, very deep, rich, vanilla-y, buttery, slightly powdery, sort of gorgeous, sweet scent. Is it unisex? 100% it is. I think with a slight male lean. Okay. But I don't have the original. I have smelt the original, so I know what the original smells like, but I don't actually have the original, because the original is silly money. I couldn't have told Mason that. But you know what? It is an expensive fragrance. I'm going to perhaps go for the Amber Grand first. So let me discuss this one with you. So this is by Pendora Scents. This will cost you, for the 100ml Eau de Perfume, eBay, British money, this will cost you around about £22. let me spray it and tell you what the Pendora scents is all about. Okay, I will say the Pendora scents, whilst it definitely picks up on the vibe of Grand Sieur by MFK, it's very chemical. Alright, I'll be perfectly honest, I've worn this an awful lot, as you can see. This, for the first 10, maybe 20 minutes, is almost a very off-putting chemical. It's alcoholic, it's chemical, and it really sort of smells cheap and nasty. After the 20 minutes, it settles down and it becomes a very, very sort of maybe, yes, put a silly percentage on it, very, very sort of 85% the same as Grand Sieur. Okay, you do have to go through the initial chemical sort of horribleness about this one, the Pendora scents. It settles down. Now, this one, in terms of the smell, it is very good once it settles down. In terms of performance, on my skin, this is about a 2, maybe 2.5 hour fragrance of a scent bubble, of a trail coming off you. It is about a 2.5 hour fragrance, which is okay, which is acceptable. And in terms of the smell, it's, I say, once the chemicalness has died off and burnt off, whatever, the actual smell is pretty good. Let me tell you though, that the Fragrance World one, which is called BARAKKAT, double K, I don't know if you can focus on it, and then it's called AMBRE Eve. This, personally, is a way better take and way better performance on Grand Sieur. Let's spray the other hand. You know, from the outset, this, I mean, there is a slight chemicalness to it. This is a very good scent right from the outset, okay? When you look at it, it leaves a much oilier residue. And let me be honest with you, this has awesome performance. This on me is around about a 5-hour fragrance of a scent bubble, of a trail. On clothes, it's there the next day, and on skin, it's there all day. Let me tell you that this, in my nose, is closer to Grand Sieur than the Pendora scents. Okay, there's nothing particularly wrong with the Pendora scents. It's an acceptable smell. All right, let's be honest. Out of both of these, if someone walked past you and this was trailing off them, you'd know exactly the smell it was copying, all right? Or you'd assume they're probably wearing the MFK Grand Sieur. Okay, they're both really clear in what they are duping, if you like. But the Fragrance World not only has the better performance, but it also has a closer smell to Grand Sieur. And you don't have to go through all the chemical mess at the start to get there. This, right from the outset, is an awesome take on Grand Sieur and is a very, very good scent. All right, now, it's definitely unisex. I think it has a male lean. And I think what takes it male, see, all right, I will be perfectly honest with you. I have had the occasional headache with wearing this one because it is so sickly, sickly sweet. That's the amber, that's the vanilla, the way they're sort of really sort of intense. The lavender is what just pulls it back a little bit from being too sweet. But every now and then, when the lavender is not on full pelt, it's sickly sweet. And I say at least twice, I've ended up with a headache from this one because it is piercingly sweet. Okay. So, out of the two, the Pendora scents or the Fragrance World, I'd go for the Fragrance World. A better smell, a way better performance. Nothing wrong with this. If you can only get the Pendora scents and you want that sort of golden seal vibe, it's a very, very good take on it. Okay. Just before I go, let me give you another option of a fragrance which is in the same category, on the same bench if you like, way cheaper than both of those because it's about a £15 fragrance. It's made by the mighty Latifa and it's called Anna Abaid Powdery. Okay, now this is a similar. Okay, it's not a clone of Golden Seor, but it's the same sort of deep, rich vanilla with amber. This one's got saffron on it, I think, on the top. It's got a sweetness on top, but it's of the same category of fragrances, if that makes sense. So, my recommendation is the Fragrance World BARAKKAT, double K, Ambre Eve Eau de Perfume. This will cost you around, I think it was around about £20 on eBay for the 100ml. Okay, now I hope this review has made sense. I hope it's maybe helped you decide which one of those you would go for, and I hope you appreciate the fact my dream about meeting Mr. Mason Francis Kirkhagen was so real to me. Just like these 3D glasses. Right, I'm sorry this is a long review. If you stayed with me all the way, I absolutely respect you. I'm not a professional reviewer, as you can tell. I'm just a crazy guy with a passion for fragrances, and my aim is to pass that fragrance passion on to you so that hopefully you will wear a good fragrance every single day. I'm going to love you and leave you now, but before I go, you have got to promise me two things. First of all, that you stay safe, you take care, and secondly, you've got to promise me that you spray a good fragrance every single day. I am actually going to love you and leave you now. Good night. Goodbye.